I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I guess I want to get this off my chest, maybe even get some advice. My marriage with Emily wasn't perfect, but I thought we had something real. We've been together for about 8 years, married for 5, and up until recently, I honestly believed she loved me. We had our fights, sure, but nothing that hinted at the kind of betrayal I uncovered. A little backstory: I was diagnosed with cancer about a year ago. It was a rough time: chemo, surgeries, the whole 9 yards. Emily was there for me most of the time, or at least I believed she was. She'd sit with me during treatments, hold my hand, cry with me. I thought she was my rock. I was vulnerable, scared, and honestly pretty dependent on her emotional support. The first signs that something was off started a few months ago. Emily became more distant. She started working late more often, claiming she was overtime at the office or meeting up with friends. She'd change her phone password, which was strange because she'd never done that before. I shrugged it off at first, telling myself she was busy or stressed. But then she started to lie about little things, about where she was, who she was with. I'd catch her in small contradictions, and those niggling doubts grew. Then came the night I found the texts. It was stupid, honestly. I was just messing around on her phone one day, something I rarely did, but I was feeling paranoid and I wanted to see if she was hiding something. I didn't expect to find what I did. There were messages, flirty, intimate, suggestive messages with someone named Chris. I recognized the name. It was her coworker, a guy she'd always insisted was just a friend. But the tone of those texts, it wasn't friendly. It was loaded with innuendos and talks about secrets, about how much she missed him when she was away. I remember my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I kept scrolling, horrified, as she sent pictures, nothing explicit but enough to make me see that this wasn't just innocent banter. There were mentions of wanting to meet up, of sneaking around. My mind went blank. How could she do this? How could she betray me like that, especially after everything? I was fighting for my life, for us, and she was playing some sick game with her coworker behind my back. And the worst part, she swore she loved me. She'd look me in the eyes, say she was faithful, that she'd never hurt me like that. She'd always been a bitch about my friends, my family, my hobbies, anything that took my attention away from her. Yet here she was, sneaking around, lying, cheating. The pain hit me like a freight train. I felt so stupid for trusting her, for believing that she cared enough to stay faithful. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was like the universe was mocking me in my weakest moment. I was battling cancer and she was out screwing her coworker, lying like it was nothing. It felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I was frozen, devastated, trying to process what I'd just seen. But I knew I couldn't keep this to myself forever. That's when the real trouble started. How do you even begin to deal with something like that? How do you look at someone you loved, someone you trusted with everything, and realize they'd been lying and cheating all along? It's a blow that shatters your entire sense of reality. If I'm honest, my first instinct was rage, pure, uncontrollable rage. I wanted to smash something, scream, hurt her back somehow. But I also felt this crushing sadness. I'd fought so hard just to stay alive, and now I was losing my marriage, losing the person I thought I knew. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and more alone than I ever had in my life. All I could think about was how I'd trusted her, how I'd shared everything, including my sickness, and she turned out to be the one stabbing me in the back. That night I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal. I didn't even know what I wanted to do yet, whether to forgive her, fight for us, or just walk away. But I knew one thing: nothing was ever going to be the same again. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind kept replaying the texts, the lies, her face when she was caught. I wanted to believe she was going to deny everything, that maybe it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, something. But deep down, I knew the truth. The evidence was there, clear as day. And so was the pain. I decided I had to confront her. I didn't want to let her get away with it, not after what I'd seen. I told her I needed to talk. She was still in bed, half asleep, acting like she had no idea what I was about to say. When I told her I knew about the texts, her face changed instantly. Her eyes widened and she tried to deny it, of course. She said it was just a stupid joke, that Chris was just a friend and I was overreacting. She spat out the words with that same bitchy attitude she always had, like I was the one making a big deal out of nothing. She kept lying, spinning the story, saying those texts were harmless, that she didn't cheat, that I was just paranoid. That's the moment I realized she thought she could manipulate her way out of this, like she'd been doing for years. Her tone was dismissive, like I was an idiot for even doubting her. I could see the disdain in her eyes, the way she looked at me like I was somehow the problem for even bringing this up. But I wasn't about to let her lie her way out this time. I told her I'd seen everything, her messages, the pictures, the way she'd been sneaking around behind my back. Her reaction. She scoffed, said I was just jealous, that Chris was nothing, and that I was crazy for thinking there was anything more. She said she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me, and then she threw in this classic line. You're just insecure because of your cancer, you're not thinking straight. That really set me off. I mean, how does a woman who swore she loved me try to gaslight me after I've been through everything? The nerve. I was furious, but I kept my cool. I told her if she wanted to keep lying to herself, that was her choice. But I wasn't going to be her idiot anymore. I was done. That's when I started planning what to do next. I had to figure out how to get her out of my life without losing my shit or doing something I'd regret. I realized I had to be smart about this. No yelling, no screaming, just cold, calculated. Because at that point I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. How could she betray me so callously? How could she lie and act like I was the crazy one? I spent the day trying to keep it together. I went to the hospital for some tests, pretending everything was normal. Inside, I was a mess. My mind kept circling back to her, to the betrayal, and to the fact that I'd trusted her with my sick, vulnerable self. It felt like she'd punched me in the gut, and I didn't know if I had the strength left to pick myself up. But I knew I had to. I couldn't let her win. I decided there and then that I was going to find out the full extent of her lies, her cheating, and then decide what to do. I wasn't going to be some fool who gets played like a pawn. Not anymore. I deserved better. I was going to get to the bottom of this, no matter how much it hurt, because I realized something that day. I was done being the victim. If she wanted to lie and cheat, she'd have to do it without me. I was done trusting her blindly. For the first time in my life, I felt a strange flicker of clarity, anger, but also a kind of resolve. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about me finally waking up and taking control. After that initial confrontation, everything changed. I knew I couldn't just sit around waiting for her to come clean or for some miracle to happen. I had to act. My first step was to gather more evidence, not because I wanted to hurt her more, but because I needed the truth. I started digging through her phone, her emails, even her social media accounts when she wasn't looking. I wanted to understand just how deep her lies went. I needed to see everything. What I found was worse than I imagined. There were more messages with Chris, more calls, even a few photos exchanged, nothing explicit but enough to confirm I was right. She'd been lying for weeks, maybe longer. She told me she was working late or at the gym, but she was really with him. I found a diary-style message she'd left herself, detailing her plans to meet him secretly, how she'd finally get what she wanted. It was like looking into the mind of a stranger, someone I'd never thought I knew. The betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks all over again. I felt so stupid for trusting her, so naive for believing she was loyal. I'd been fighting cancer, trying to stay strong for her, and she was out screwing her coworker behind my back. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it, how I missed the signs. I replayed every moment, her coldness, her excuses, her dismissive attitude, and now I saw it all clearly. She lied to my face, played her games, and I'd been too blind to see it. I knew I had to do something about this. I couldn't just let it slide, not after all the pain she'd caused. I decided I'd confront her again, but this time with the truth in my pocket, ready to blow her cover. When I brought her into the living room that night, her usual bitchy attitude was back, like she'd been expecting this moment. She tried to act innocent, said I was paranoid, that I was crazy for even doubting her. She even had the nerve to say that I was overreacting because of my cancer, that I was losing my mind. I looked right at her and told her I knew everything, the texts, the plans, the lies. Her face paled a little, and for a second I thought she might crack. But then she spun her usual bullshit, saying she never meant to hurt me, that Chris was just a fling, and that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. She said she loved me, that she'd never cheat on me, and then she threw in this gem. You're just jealous because I'm prettier and more fun than you ever were. That's when I really saw how twisted she was, trying to turn it around like I was the guilty one for catching her. I was boiling inside. How could she be so callous, so dismissive? I told her I was done, that I was sick of her lies and her bullshit. I told her I'd had enough of her sneaking around and that I was planning to end it. Her response: she got defensive, accused me of not trusting her, and even tried to make me feel guilty. That's classic Emily. Blame everyone else for her problems, act like she's the victim. I didn't want to fight, but I knew I couldn't just walk away without making her realize how much she'd screwed up. I told her she'd crossed a line, that I deserved honesty and respect, and if she couldn't give that, then there was no point in staying married. She just rolled her eyes, kept lying, and told me I was overreacting again. But I wasn't about to let her derail this. I told her that I was going to think about everything, that I needed some time to process, and I made it clear I wasn't going to stay with her if she kept up this game. That night I slept in the guest room. I felt hollow, broken even, but also strangely calm. I knew I was at a crossroads. I could keep pretending everything was fine, or I could finally face the brutal truth and do what I had to do. The betrayal had cut so deep. I wasn't sure if I'd ever come back from it, but I also knew one thing: I was done being the fool. I was done being the one who got played. From now on, I was going to protect myself, no matter how much it hurt. Because sometimes the only way to survive is to face the storm head-on. Over the next few days, I fell into a strange kind of numbness. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, saw those terrible messages, and felt this gnawing rage mixed with heartbreak. I kept asking myself how I hadn't seen it sooner, how I'd let her get away with this for so long. The worst part was knowing she'd lied to me for months, maybe longer. She swore she loved me, yet she was out screwing her coworker, plotting behind my back while I was fighting for my life. I decided I needed to get some space. No way I was staying in that house with her anymore. I called my best friend Mike, a guy I trusted more than anyone. I told him everything: how I discovered her betrayal, her lies, her disgusting attitude. I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge me or tell me what to do, just listen. Mike was furious for me and told me I was better off without her, that I deserved someone who actually cared about me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment trying to think clearly. I knew I had to make some decisions fast. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, not after everything. I considered leaving, divorcing her, cutting her out of my life completely. I'd been through so much already with the cancer, and now this. It felt like the universe was just kicking me when I was down. But a part of me still loved her, stupid as that sounded. Maybe I'd built this false image of us, and now it was crashing down around me. The next day I went through her stuff. I found her secret stash of texts, photos, even some gifts she'd bought Chris. I found receipts from the hotel she'd booked to meet him. All of it confirmed she'd been planning this for longer than I thought. That's when I realized I couldn't just walk away and pretend it didn't happen. I had to do something more. I decided I'd confront her again, but this time with a plan. I wanted her to see I wasn't some whipped fool. I was going to make her regret ever messing with me. When she came home that evening, she was her usual bitchy self, trying to pretend everything was fine. Her attitude shifted when I blocked her from entering my side of the apartment. I told her I knew everything: her lies, her cheating, her manipulations. She tried to deny it all again, but I wasn't buying it. I laid out the evidence I'd collected, how her plans with Chris were just the tip of the iceberg. Her face twisted into this angry, defensive sneer. Her response: she said she was sorry, that she made a mistake, and that I was overreacting. She threw in the classic line: "You're just insecure, especially with your health issues. You're not thinking clearly." That was the moment I knew she was trying to gaslight me again, that she was going to keep twisting everything to her advantage. I told her I didn't want to hear her lies anymore, that I'd already made up my mind about what I was going to do. I told her she had to leave, that I wasn't going to let her steal my peace, my life, or my dignity anymore. I wasn't going to be some fool who gets played and humiliated. I was done. I wanted her out of my life for good. She looked at me with contempt and spat that I'd regret this, that I was making a huge mistake. But I didn't care. I was exhausted, angry, and ready to start over, even if it meant facing a very lonely road ahead. That night I slept alone again. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, feeling a strange mix of relief and despair. I didn't want vengeance, but I knew I had to make her see she couldn't get away with this. I had to reclaim my life, my dignity, and my self-respect. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, more painful than fighting cancer. But I finally understood that sometimes the only way to heal is to tear everything down and rebuild from the ground up. I was ready to do that now, no matter how broken I felt. In the days that followed, I threw myself into organizing my life again. I knew I couldn't stay in that apartment. Her presence was a constant reminder of everything I had lost and everything I needed to move past. I rented a small place nearby, something cheap but comfortable enough to give me space to breathe. Moving out wasn't easy. Packing up years of memories, some good, some terrible, was like ripping my own chest open. But I knew I had to do it. I had to cut the cord completely if I ever wanted to heal. Once I was out, the real work began. I felt like I was walking the edge of a breakdown, but I also knew that I had no choice but to keep going. My health was fragile enough without this mess weighing me down even more. I cut contact with Emily entirely, blocked her number, her social media, everything. I didn't want to see her face or hear her lies anymore. I just wanted to focus on myself, on surviving and rebuilding. Most of all, I felt a strange sense of liberation. Yeah, I was devastated, angry, and hurt, but I also realized I was finally in control. The betrayal had shattered my trust, but it also woke me up. I started going back to the gym, eating better, and even talking to a therapist. My cancer treatments had taken so much from me, and I refused to let her betrayal do the same. Slowly, I started feeling like I could breathe again, like I was reclaiming my life from her toxic grip. Still, the pain lingered. Every so often, I'd find myself thinking about her, about what I lost. The love, the trust, the future we'd planned. It was hard to believe that someone I loved so deeply could betray me so callously. How do you get over something like that? I kept telling myself that I deserved better, that I was worth more than her lies. I kept reminding myself that I fought cancer and survived against the odds. This heartbreak was just another challenge I had to face down. One day, I sat on the balcony of my new place, looking out over the city. I felt a strange mixture of sadness and hope. Sadness because of everything I'd lost, but hope because I was finally starting to see the light beyond the darkness. I realized that I'd learned a lot from this experience, about trust, about strength, about how sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people you least expect. It's a hard lesson, but one I had to learn the hard way. I know I won't forget her, and maybe I'll never fully forgive her, but I refuse to let this define me. I'm rebuilding my life piece by piece, stronger than I was before. And if there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's that sometimes the only way to truly move on is to face the pain head-on, no matter how much it hurts. Because in the end, you gotta love yourself enough to walk away from what's broken and trust that someday you'll find someone who's worthy of your trust, not just blindly, but with your whole heart. It's been a few months since I made the decision to cut her out completely, and honestly, it's been the hardest, most brutal period of my life. But I also feel like I've finally started to breathe again. The pain hasn't disappeared, how could it? But I've learned to live with it, to let it shape me rather than break me. I've come to accept that some wounds don't heal perfectly, but they do fade, and the scars become a part of who you are. Looking back, I realize I was blind for a long time. I trusted her blindly because I loved her, because I believed in the life we built together. I thought her love was real, that she was committed to me through everything, including my battle with cancer. But she was. She was just playing her game, hiding her lies behind a pretty face and a cold attitude. And I was too afraid to see what was right in front of me. That was my mistake. Now I see things differently. I know that sometimes people are capable of the most terrible betrayals, But I also know that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived cancer and I can survive heartbreak. I've learned that valuing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. If someone hurts you, lying and cheating behind your back, then they don't deserve your trust or your love. Better to walk away and heal than to stay and let the poison spread. This experience taught me a lot about myself, about my resilience, about setting boundaries, and about what I truly want in life. I don't want lies, I don't want betrayal. I want genuine connection, honesty, and respect, and I refuse to settle for anything less. I've started dating again cautiously because I want to trust again, but I also know that trust has to be earned. No more blind faith. No more ignoring the signs. To anyone out there who might be going through something similar, just know you're not alone. It hurts like hell and it feels like your world's falling apart. But eventually, the pain lessens. You find new strength. You learn who truly cares about you, and you realize that sometimes the best revenge is living well, loving yourself, and moving forward. Because life is too precious to waste on people who don't value you. And I've finally learned that lesson the hard way. So I'm choosing to heal. I'm choosing to rebuild. And I'm choosing myself every single time. That's the real victory.